Hello, this is Barry McCormick. Welcome to the BastilleBSD video series. Today we're going to do another installment of our Bastille shorts. A Bastille short is where we take one individual command and look at it in depth. Today we're going to look at the create command. The create command creates a new thin container or a thick container if you use the right option. So the create is what builds a gel for you. Let's look at the documentation. As always, I have up the BastilleBSD website. Click on the documentation link. Come down to the create command and the Bastille subcommands. Okay. The Bastille create command. The format is Bastille create options, the name you want to name the gel, what release you want to base it on, the IP address, and then the network interface if needed. If you're building a VNet or a bridged interface, you must put the interface there. If you're building a standard gel, then you don't have to put the interface there. If you look at all the options, capital B enables a VNet container attached to a specified already existing bridge, external bridge. -C creates a clone container, duplicates of the base release. -D, capital D, creates a gel with both IPv4 and IPv6 networking. And it says inherit and IP host names only. -E creates an empty container. This creates an empty container for doing a custom gel build. So 99.9% of you will never build an empty gel. -L, capital L, builds a Linux gel. It's still considered, but it's called experimental. It's still considered experimental, but you can run a Linux gel. Capital M creates a static MAC address. If by default, if you don't use -M and you reboot a gel, the MAC address changes. We had requests from some of the users some time ago that they were using the MAC addresses for targeting gels and for monitoring and such. And when the gels would reboot, it would mess up their monitoring. They wanted a way to create a static MAC address, so we coded that in for VNet gels. No validate. Do not validate the release when creating a gel. This allows you to use non-standard releases and build gels off of them. Like if you clone a gel and clone it into a release, you can use the no validate with that to build a gel. No boot. Create the gel with boot equal off. Gels by default are created with boot equal on. In other words, if you reboot the system, if the boot is set to on, it'll boot those gels. If you want it to not boot that gel automatically, you set boot equal off. -P is a priority value for the gel. There's a whole video on the boot priority or the boot no boot and on the priority. If you want some in-depth detail into that, like I said, if you look at the in-depth series, there's a whole video that goes into those two priorities or those two options in great detail. -T is thick gel. Creates a thick container. Remember, a thin gel has mostly symbolic links back to the release, so a thin gel is really small, very quick. A thick gel becomes a standalone, self-contained. The entire base is copied over into it, so it becomes standalone. Capital V, VNet gels, which is the ones that I use almost exclusively. -v creates a gel with a specified VLAN ID. If you have your network broken up into VLANs and you want to attach a gel to a specific VLAN on your network, this is how you do it. -X is debug, which gives you a tremendous amount of output. And -Z is a very capital Z is a very advanced feature that you can go in and create list of ZFS options to create the gel with. So if you are advanced and really want to tweak the ZFS options for some reason, this command is in here. We'll not be going into that in this video. So, a lot of options here. Back to the format. Bastille, create, options, name, release, IP address, interface. Okay, let me destroy all of these right quick. Okay, we have no gels. Now then, I have both 13.5 and 14.2 both bootstrapped. Remember, you have to bootstrap the release to build a gel. So I did that ahead of time. I didn't think you wanted to sit here and watch over my DSL line at downloading releases. You have something better to use 6 to 8 minutes of your time doing. Okay. As always, you type Bastille create, hit enter, you get the help file, exactly the same help file we just went over in the documentation. So I'm going to create a standard gel. Bastille create the name, (13.5) release, just because we can. IP address. With a standard gel, I have to give it an IP address on my network. And a standard gel, I don't have to tell it. It will use the Bastille 0 interface. So, notice it created gel name standard. It's up. It's on the IP address I gave it. That's all there is to creating a standard gel. Remember, with a standard gel, you can't use DHCP. You have to give it IP addresses. That's probably one of my reasons that I use VNet more than anything else, is I don't want to manually track the IP addresses of a bunch of gels. If you're only going to have 1 or 2 gels, then probably it's not a big deal. So let's create a VNet gel. Capital V. I'll name this one VNet. Make sure I got everything there. Bastille create a name, Bastille create, capital V, a name, a release, an IP address, and the interface. VTnet 0 is the physical interface on this VM that I'm using. That's the Beehive default network adapter. Now then, if I do ifconfig, you'll notice it created a VTnet 0 bridge and this ePairs. So it created all the networking for you. So now we do Bastille list, and it shows that VNet got an address of 55 from my DHCP server. Okay. I have a bridged interface, that VTnet 0 bridge, so I can create a bridge fairly easy. Okay, create -B, name, release, IP address, interface. If I had to run the VNet bridge first, I would have to manually go in and do an ifconfig, create the bridge, and do a bunch of pre-work. I did a video where the entire video was about setting up a bridged setup. So if you're interested in the more details of the bridge setup, go watch that in-depth video. Okay, bridged ended up with a 62 address. We've just now created all three of the standard types of jails. If I bootstrapped Linux, then I could, if I had Linux bootstrapped on this one, I could then do Bastille create -L a Linux jail and whatever the release name is that you downloaded, and then I could do that and build a Linux jail. I will do a video later where I build a Linux jail and show you building a Linux jail on its own. Like I said, it's still experimental. It does work. I've built a couple of them and played with them, and they work perfectly fine. Not sure I would put one in a production environment, but for educational purposes and playing around, they're fine. So, what have we done today? We looked at the Bastille create command. We looked at all the options you have here. We went in and we created the three standard types of jails. A standard jail, I guess three standard is the wrong word. The three normal jails that you build. A bridged, which you have to have a bridge created before you do the bridged interface. VNet, which creates all the networking for you, and then a standard jail, which you can't do DHCP, you have to give it an IP address. That's all there is to creating jails. Hopefully this has been informative, giving you a head start on how to create some jails. And as always, happy computing.